My mother doesn't know that the woman her future daughter-in-law calls the most talented woodworker in the Carolinas is me. She doesn't know that the harvest table Margot Pemberton's mother ordered for $18,000 was built by the daughter. She asked not to come to Christmas. She doesn't know that in 11 days, at a design showcase in downtown Charlotte, my name will be projected on a 30-foot screen while my family sits in the third row, and the thing they spent 7 years calling my little hobby will be the reason 300 people stand up and clap. So they never knew. I was 22 when I told them. Thanksgiving, my parents' house in Ballantyne, a subdivision in South Charlotte, where every house has the same stone front colonial, and the same Bermuda grass, and the same American flag hanging by the garage. My father was carving the turkey, my mother was rearranging the centerpiece for the fourth time. My brother Miles was texting under the table, already bored. "I'm not going back to UNC Charlotte," I said. "I'm moving to Asheville." I got accepted into an apprenticeship with a master woodworker. My mother set down the gravy boat. My father stopped carving. "Woodwork," my mother said, "the way you'd say root canal." "Custom furniture," I said. "Handmade." There's a 2-year program with a guy named Tomas Vidal. He's been building furniture for 30 years. He trained under George Nakashima's apprentice. Nobody at the table knew who George Nakashima was. Nobody asked. My father wiped his hands on the dish towel. "Sloane, you have 1 semester left. 1 semester. You're going to throw away a business degree to go sand wood in the mountains?" My mother tucked her collarbone. "What about health insurance? What about a 401(n)?" Miles looked up from his phone. "Wait, like building tables? With your hands?" "Almost." He almost laughed. "That's your plan?" "It's not a plan," I said. "It's what I want to do." My mother gave me the smile. The one that wasn't a smile. The one that said she was already rehearsing how to explain this to her friends at book club. "Well, we support you, sweetheart, you know that." Support. I learned what that word meant over the next 7 years. It meant they showed up when it was convenient and changed the subject when it wasn't. Every other Sunday, we did dinner at my parents' house. Pot roast or baked chicken, same tablecloth, same seats. My mother always started with Miles. Miles had graduated from Wake Forest Law, joined a corporate firm in uptown Charlotte, wore fitted suits, drove a leased BMW. He talked about depositions and partner tracks, and how the firm was sending him to a conference in Scottsdale. My parents leaned in like he was delivering a TED Talk. My father would nod, ask follow-ups. My mother would beam. "Miles, that's wonderful. We're so proud." Then she'd turn to me. "How's the wood thing?" "Honey, that's it." Not "what are you building?" Not "how's the apprenticeship?" Not "tell me about the piece you're designing." Just "how's the wood thing?" The same tone you'd use to ask about someone's diet they'll probably quit by February. When I finished my apprenticeship at 24 and Tomas offered me a permanent position in his shop, my mother said, "That's nice, sweetie." Then she asked Miles about his annual review. When I built my first commission piece, a walnut dining table for a couple in Hendersonville who'd found me through Instagram, $200, my father said, "Good for you, kiddo." My mother asked Miles if his firm was still covering his parking downtown. When I left Tomas's shop at 26 to start my own company, Aldrich Woodworks, sole proprietor, rented a 900-square-foot workshop off Haywood Road in West Asheville, liability insurance, business license, all legal, my mother said. "Just be careful, honey. A lot of small businesses don't make it." Then she asked Miles about his new condo. I stopped offering details after year 3. I stopped waiting for curiosity, but I kept building, and by the time my mother called me to say I wasn't welcome at Christmas, Aldrich Woodworks had built over 200 custom pieces, employed 11 people, and brought in $1.3 million in revenue last year. I personally cleared $142,000 after payroll, materials, and shop rent. Miles made $118,000 reviewing contracts for a pharmaceutical company. But every other Sunday, my mother asked about his partner track, and every other Sunday she asked me, "How's the shop, honey?" The call came on a Tuesday evening, December 3rd. I'd just finished sanding a live-edge black cherry console table in my workshop. My hands were coated in fine dust, and my forearms ached the way they always do after a long session with the orbital sander. The shop smelled like cherry wood and tung oil. My apron was streaked with stain. My phone rang. Mom, Tuesday wasn't a calling day. Hey, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. That voice, the measured one, the one wrapped in cashmere that she uses right before she delivers something ugly. So, Christmas. I said Sensandingo block. Miles is bringing Margot home for the first time. Her parents are driving up from Charleston, the Pembertons. I waited. Miles wants it to be really polished. Small. He's nervous about the impression, and he's worried that if your situation comes up in conversation, it might be hard to explain to people like the Pembertons. My situation, I said. He didn't mean it like that. He just said you work with your hands, that you show up to things with sawdust in your hair. And he doesn't want Margot's parents to think our family is. She trailed off. Think our family is what? Less polished, she whispered. So I embarrass him. Sloane. It's just this once. The Pembertons are very traditional. Her father is a federal judge. Her mother is on the board of the Gibbs Museum. Miles doesn't want them to see his sister in work boots and get the wrong impression. Got it. I said. Thank you, sweetheart. The relief in her voice hit me like a slap. We'll do something after. Maybe New Year's brunch. Just us girls. Sure, I said. We hung up. I stood in my workshop, the one I'd built from nothing, surrounded by slabs of walnut and white oak leaning against the walls, clamps and chisels hanging in neat rows. The workbench Tomas gave me when I left his shop scarred with 4 years of cuts and stains. I stood there and didn't cry. I just thought about when I became the thing my family needed to keep out of sight. They never asked, so they never knew. Year 1. I launched Aldrich Woodworks in March 2021. Lumber prices were insane. Supply chains were wrecked. I was 26 with a workshop lease I could barely swing, $2,400 a month, and a 12-year-old pickup truck with no logo. I built 3 pieces that first month. A coffee table, a nightstand set, and a bookshelf. Posted them on Instagram. Got 2 inquiries. Closed one. I told my parents at Sunday dinner. I started my own company, Aldrich Woodworks. My father looked up. Your own company? Making furniture? My mother smiled. That's nice, honey. Be careful with the overhead. Miles didn't look up from his phone. Cool. My mother turned to him. Miles, tell us about the partners retreat. Year 2. By the end of year 2, I'd built 61 pieces. Custom dining tables, bed frames, shelving units, a 12-foot conference table for a co-working space in the River Arts District that got photographed for a regional design magazine. I hired Tomas part-time. He'd semi-retired, but he missed the work, and I missed having someone in the shop who could look at a joint and tell me it was a 1/16 of an inch off before I could see it myself. I told my parents. I hired Tomas. Business is growing. That's wonderful, honey. My mother turned to Miles. Did you hear back about that promotion? Year 3. I landed a contract with an interior design firm in Greenville that sent me 5 clients in 4 months. Revenue crossed $400,000. I hired 2 full-time woodworkers and a finishing specialist. I moved into a bigger shop, 2,200 square feet, with a proper spray booth and a lumber storage area that didn't leak when it rained. I bought a small bungalow in West Asheville, 1,100 square feet, original hardwood floors, needed a new roof. I replaced the roof myself with Tomas over 2 weekends. Spent $161,000 on the house. It appraised at $235,000 6 months later. My parents visits. My mother said, "It's cute, honey. Cozy." My father ran his hand along the kitchen island I'd built from reclaimed white oak. This is solid work, he said. That was the most interest he'd ever shown in anything I'd made. Year 4. Revenues crossed $860,000. 11 employees. I hired a full-time operations manager named Lynch Tran, who handled scheduling, client communication, and the books so I could stay in the shop designing and building. We had a 6-month wait list. Our average piece was $7,400. Our biggest contract was a $52,000 commission. A full set of custom furniture for a boutique hotel in Blowing Rock, 14 rooms, bed frames, desks, nightstands, all from locally sourced Appalachian hardwoods. Southern Living ran a 2-page spread on the hotel. They called out the furniture specifically. Every piece feels like it grew here, the writer said. I didn't tell my parents. I'd stopped volunteering by then. Year 5. This year. Aldrich Woodworks was projected to bring in $5 million. 11 employees, 3 apprentices, a workshop that hummed 6 days a week. We'd been featured in Dwell, Garden and Gun, and Architectural Digest Regional Spotlight. And in September, I got an email from the Charlotte Design Council saying I'd been nominated for Emerging Maker of the Year at their annual showcase. I read it 3 times. Told Tomasis, he cried, which made me cry. Told Lynn. She screamed and immediately asked what I was going to wear.
I didn't tell my parents.
Here's what I also didn't tell my parents. In June, I'd gotten an email from an interior designer named Margot Pemberton. She worked for a boutique design firm called Whitfield & Rowe in Charlotte. She was furnishing a new house in Myers Park for herself and her fiancé, and she'd seen the Southern Living spread on the Blowing Rock Hotel. She wanted a custom live-edge dining table, a walnut credenza, and built-in bookshelves for the study. Her emails were meticulous. She included room dimensions, finish preferences, mood boards. She knew her materials. She communicated with Lynn on logistics and with me on design. She called me Sloane or Miss Aldrich. Professional, respectful, specific. In August, she mentioned she was engaged. My fiancé is in law, she said during a phone call about edge profiles, works crazy hours, but he's excited about the house. That's great, I said. I was sketching a joint detail and barely listening. She didn't say his name. Professional boundaries. I didn't ask. I didn't know that when Miles described me to Margot, he said my sister does carpentry. I didn't know he called me the family dropout when he'd had a few glasses of wine. I didn't know that when Margot heard carpentry, she pictured someone hammering together deck boards, not someone whose work had been published in 4 national magazines. In September, Margot's mother, Mrs. Pemberton, contacted Lynch about a separate commission. She wanted a harvest table for their home in Charleston, 14 seats, hand-carved legs, live edge, black walnut. Budget, $18,000. The dinner was planned for the weekend before the wedding, a rehearsal dinner for 40 guests in their garden overlooking the harbor. I spent 3 weeks selecting the slab. I drove to a sawmill in Weaverville and walked through their inventory until I found it, an 8-foot walnut slab, with a cathedral grain pattern that looked like it was designed by someone who understood drama. I milled it, joined it, spent 40 hours hand-finishing the surface until it felt like touching water. Lynn shipped it to Charleston in November. Mrs. Pemberton emailed, "It's the most beautiful table I've ever seen. My husband wants to know if you can build him a desk." I didn't tell my parents about any of it. They never asked, so they never knew, and the silence was about to collapse in front of 300 people. December 25th. Christmas Day. I woke at 6, same as always. Made coffee in my French press, black no sugar, stood at the kitchen window watching frost on the rhododendron outside. 34 degrees. Clear sky, that sharp winter blue that only happens in the mountains. It was Christmas and I had nowhere to be. I drove to the shop. Unlocked the door at 7. The workshop was cold, sawdust still hanging in the air from yesterday's session. I turned on the space heaters, pulled on my apron, started working on a set of nightstands for a client in Raleigh. Dovetailed joints. Repetitive, precise, meditative. The chisel finds the line, the mallet taps, the waste falls away. Over and over. It quiets everything. I worked until 2 in the afternoon. Then I sat on the back steps of the shop, eating a sandwich I'd made that morning, peanut butter and honey on sourdough, watching the winter light hit the mountains in the distance. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles. "Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a great day. Not wish you were here. Not sorry." Just a text that pretended I hadn't been erased. I didn't reply. I drove home at 4, showered, put on sweatpants, sat on the couch and watched the fire I'd built in the wood stove. I wasn't performing. I wasn't sitting at a table pretending it didn't sting when they asked Miles about his partner track and asked me, "How's the shop?" I was free. And in 3 weeks, they'd see why. The Charlotte Design Council's annual showcase took place on Saturday, January 11th, at the Mint Museum Uptown. I arrived at 5:30. The parking deck was filling up. I recognized people from other studios, design firms, architecture practices. I was wearing a black turtleneck dress I'd bought at a boutique in the Grove Arcade the week before. Simple, fitted, my grandmother's pearl earrings. My hair was down, blown out, falling past my shoulders. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and thought I looked like someone my mother would be comfortable introducing. I hated that I thought that. The event space was elegant, high ceilings, white walls, spotlights on featured pieces, a stage at the front with a podium and a screen showing the CDC logo. They displayed one piece from each nominee. Mine was on a pedestal near the entrance. A hand-carved rocking chair I'd made from Appalachian ash, curved spindles, steam-bent arms, a seat shaped to hold you like a hand. I'd spent 2 months on it. It was quietly the best thing I'd ever built. I found my table. Table 6, the nominees section. 4 other makers already seated. We made small talk. Someone joked about whether the Mint Museum's own furniture collection felt threatened. Everyone laughed. I opened the program. Emerging Maker of the Year. 3 nominees. My name was one of them. I'd known for 3 months. I'd told Tomas and Ling and no one else. I scanned the room. Designers, architects, gallery owners, sponsors. Then I saw them. Table 22, near the back but with a clear sightline to the stage. Miles, my mother, my father, and Margot. My lungs forgot how to work for a second. Miles was in a navy suit. My mother wore a green dress I'd never seen, pearls at her throat. My father looked stiff in a sport coat, the way he always does when my mother makes him dress up. And Margot. Margot was in cream, hair pinned up, laughing at something my mother was saying. They were here, of course they were. Miles's firm was a gala sponsor. He'd gotten a table, brought Margot, brought my parents, the successful Aldrich family, on display. They had no idea I was in the room. Dinner was served at 6:30, pan-seared trout, wild rice, broccolini. I couldn't taste any of it. I was watching table 22. My mother touched Margot's arm the way she does when she's performing warmth. My father was nodding along, smiling wider than I'd seen in months. Miles looked pushed, confident, his arm draped behind Margot's chair. This was the version of our family he wanted to show. Complete. Without me. At 7:15, the executive director of the Design Council took the stage. A woman in her 50s, silver jewelry, calm authority. Good evening, Charlotte. Welcome to the 22nd Annual Design Council Showcase. Tonight, we celebrate the makers and designers who are shaping the future of craft in the South. Applause. She went through the sponsors. Miles's firm got a mention. I watched him sit up straighter. Then she said, "Let's begin with one of our most anticipated categories. Emerging Maker of the Year." My hands went cold under the table. At table 22, Margot straightened. She was a designer. This was her world. This category mattered. This award recognizes a maker under 35 who has demonstrated exceptional craftsmanship, business growth, and contribution to the regional design community. This year's nominees represent the future of Southern craft. A slide appeared. 3 names. Sloane Aldrich. Aldrich Woodworks. 2 others I respected. My name. 40 feet from my family. I watched it happen. Margot Gaules saw the screen still. She leaned forward, squinting, then grabbed the program and flipped to page 4. I knew what it said because I'd memorized it. Sloane Aldrich, founder of Aldrich Woodworks, has built over 200 custom pieces in 4 years. Her 11-person studio in Asheville is celebrated for its use of locally sourced Appalachian hardwoods and its commitment to traditional joinery techniques. Aldrich Woodworks has been featured in Dwell, Garden & Gun, Southern Living, and Architectural Digest, and is projected to reach $1.5 million in revenue this year. Margot's hand went to her mouth. She turned to Miles. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her point at the screen. I saw Miles's face go from confusion to recognition to something that looked like all the blood had left his body. He followed her finger, saw my name, went white. My mother noticed the shift. "What's wrong?" I could practically read her lips. Margot pointed again. My mother looked at the screen, found my name. Her hand flew to her pearls. My father followed, squinted, went very still. At table 6, I didn't move. "This year's winner," the director said, pausing, smiling, "has redefined what it means to build something by hand in the modern South. Sloane Aldrich, Aldrich Woodworks." The room erupted. A spotlight found me. I stood. My legs didn't feel like mine, but I stood. I saw Tomas in the back of the room, standing, clapping, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, the same hands that taught me how to read grain, how to sharpen a chisel, how to listen to what the wood wanted to become. I walked to the stage. 20 steps, maybe 30, the longest walk of my life. I passed within sight of table 22. I let myself glance once. My mother's wine glass was frozen halfway to her lips. My father's mouth was slightly open, processing. Miles looked like someone had kicked him in the chest. And Margot. Margot was staring at Miles, not at me, watching the lie disintegrate in real time. The director handed me the award. A sculpted glass piece on a walnut base, heavy, real. She shook my hand, stepped aside. The microphone waited. 300 people looked at me. "Thank you," I said, and my voice held. 4 years ago, I signed a lease on a workshop I couldn't afford, bought a truck with no logo, and told anyone who'd listen that I was going to build furniture worth keeping for 100 years. Most people smiled politely and changed the subject. I paused. This company started with me and a chisel and a teacher who believed I had hands worth training. Today it's 11 people who show up before dawn and stay past dark because they believe craft isn't just a product, it's a promise. Another pause. To everyone who saw what we were building before anyone else thought it was worth looking at, thank you. I let that land. I wasn't looking at my family, but I felt them hear it. Applause, louder, this time. I walked off the stage, sat down. Someone put a glass of champagne in my hand. My phone buzzed face down on the table. I turned it over. A text from my mother. "We need to talk." I put the phone down. People milled around after the ceremony. I was talking to an architect I'd collaborated with on the Blowing Rock Hotel when I saw my mother approaching. Fast, my father behind her, looking like a man entering a building he wasn't sure he had permission to be in. "Sloane," my mother said. "We had no idea." The architect excused himself. My mother stood in front of me, clutching her small green purse like a life raft. "We had no idea," she said again. "I know," I said. "That's the point." My father stepped forward. "Sloane, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at him, 63 years old. The man who'd sat in his chair every other Sunday for 7 years asking Miles about depositions and asking me, "How's the shop?" Like it was a phase I'd outgrow. "I did tell you," I said. 7 years ago, I told you I started a company. You said, 'Be careful with the overhead,' and asked Miles about his promotion." My mother's face crumbled. "But this is a real business, Sloane." "What did you think I did?" I asked. "Whittle sticks in a shed?" Silence. "The kind that has mass." My father opened his mouth, closed it. "Excuse me, I need to thank my team." I made it 5 steps before I heard Miles's voice. "Sloane." I stopped. He caught up near the bar. "I didn't know it was this big. You never asked?" "You never told me." "I told you and Mom and Dad at every dinner for 3 years. You just didn't hear it. Because every time I mentioned a client or a contract or a new hire, Mom changed the subject to your partner track and everybody moved on." He looked away. His jaw was clenched. "Margot won't even look at me." "That's not my problem, Miles. You uninvited me from Christmas, your own sister, because I embarrass you. Me, the carpenter." I held up the award. "The carpenter whose company built the table Margot's mother is serving rehearsal dinner on next month." The color drained from his face. "What?" "The walnut harvest table. 14 seats, hand-carved legs. The one Mrs. Pemberton called the most beautiful table she's ever seen. I built it, with these hands. The ones you didn't want the Pembertons to see." He stared at me. I watched it land, the full weight of every assumption he'd ever made, collapsing under a table he could have admired if he'd ever bothered to look. "We're done," I said. I walked away. He said my name once more. I didn't turn around. I was at the bar ordering water when Margot found me. "Sloane." Her voice was careful, controlled, but her eyes were red. "Can we talk?" I nodded. We walked to a quiet alcove near the windows overlooking Tryon Street. The city still reflected off the glass. "I am so sorry," she said, "for not connecting it. Aldrich Woodworks." "Sloane Aldrich." "Miles Aldrich," she shook her head. "I should have. You were right there. Your name was on every invoice. I just never." He told me his sister did carpentry. "Like hobbyist carpentry. He said you were the family disappointment." She stopped. "He said you resented him for being more successful." I kept my face still. But something cracked inside me along a fault line that had been forming for 7 years. When I heard carpentry, she said, I pictured someone building birdhouses. Not someone whose rocking chair is sitting on a pedestal in the Mint Museum right now. Not someone whose table my mother calls the centerpiece of her home. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. Margot, Pemberton, Whitfield and Row Design. She handed it to me. I have 4 projects next year that need custom millwork, she said. Professional basis. I'd be honored. I took the card. Thank you. She nodded. You deserve to be seen 7 years ago. I'm sorry it took the rest of us this long. She walked away. My mother caught me in the lobby on my way out. Sloane, please. I stopped. She was standing there with my father, both of them looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Can we take you to dinner, she said. To celebrate your award. I looked at her. She was 59. She'd worked as a dental office receptionist for 24 years. She'd never gotten the title she deserved. She'd watched younger people with degrees get promoted over her, and she'd decided the only protection in the world was a title and a suit and a career that looked impressive from the outside. She'd pushed Miles and me toward that because she thought appearance was armor. And in wanting us to be safe, she'd missed the life I'd actually built. No, I said, but thank you for asking. Her face folded. My father reached for her hand. I looked at both of them. 7 years of dinners. 7 years of being invisible at my own family's table. I need to go, I said. I walked out into the January night. 38 degrees. My breath hung in the air. I walked to my truck, got in, set the award on the passenger seat where my work apron usually sat, started the engine. I sat there for a minute, hands on the wheel, looking at the glass sculpture, catching the parking deck light. They spent 7 years not seeing me. Tonight, I made sure they couldn't look away. The email from my father came 3 days later. Tuesday morning, 6:12 a.m. Subject line. I'm sorry. Sloane. I've been trying to write this since Saturdays. I don't know how to say it, so I'll just say it. We failed you. I sat in that room and watched my daughter's name on a screen in front of 300 people, and I realized I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've built. I asked Miles about his cases every dinner because I understood law. I didn't understand what you were doing because I never tried to. That's not your fault, Ma, it's mine. I'm ashamed. I'm proud of you. I should have said that 7 years ago. I'm sorry. Dad, he signed it Dad, not Douglas, not D. Aldrich, Dad. He hadn't signed anything that way in years. I read it 3 times. Set the phone down. Looked at the ceiling. My mother texted at noon. Can we meet? Coffee Saturday. Summit on Biltmore, I replied. 10 a.m. She responded instantly, I'll be there. Miles left a voicemail at 4. His voice cracked twice. Sloane, it's me. I know you don't want to hear from me. I get it. I need to say this. I was jealous. I've been jealous for years. You had the guts to go build something real, and I took the safe route and told myself that made me better than you. It didn't. Margot gave back the ring. She said she couldn't marry someone who'd hide his own sister to impress her parents. She's right. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. But I'm sorry. 3 minutes, 47s. I listened twice, then put the phone away and went back to the shop. Saturday morning. Summit Coffee on Biltmore Avenue. Exposed brick, the smell of espresso, morning light through tall windows. I got there at 9:50, ordered a black coffee, sat by the window. My mother arrived at 9:56. Gray sweater, jeans, no makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. She sat down, ordered the same thing. Wrapped her hands around the cup. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I nodded. I don't know where to start. Start with why, I said. She took a breath. I wanted you to have an easier life than I did. I've answered phones at a dentist's office for 24 years, Sloane. I've watched people half my age get promoted because they had a degree and I didn't. I thought if you went to college, got a corporate job, wore blazers, you'd be safe. When you said woodworking, all I heard was hard labor, no respect, no retirement plan. I have all of this, I said. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. I know that now. But I couldn't see it because I was looking for the wrong things. I didn't need you to understand the business, Mom. I needed you to be proud of me, of the actual work, not proud of me, despite what I do. Proud of me because of it. She was quiet for a long time. Even if the business had failed, she whispered, even if you were still building one table at a time in a rented garage, I should have been proud. Because you were brave enough to try, and I wasn't brave enough to see that. I hadn't expected her to say that. The comment I'd carried like a stone, the one that whispered your worth shouldn't depend on your revenue, shifted in my chest. She'd heard it without me saying it. Does that count? She asked. I don't know yet, I said. She nodded. That's fair. We sat for a moment, then I said, I'll come to Easter. Her head snapped up. You will? On conditions. Nobody calls what I do a hobby. Nobody calls it just woodworking, or my little thing. And I'm bringing Thomas. He doesn't have family nearby. He taught me everything. My mother's face flickered. Then she nodded. We'd love to have him. We finished our coffee in 40 minutes. When we stood, she hugged me. I let her. Easter was in April. I drove to Charlotte with Tomas in the passenger seat, holding a hand-turned maple salad bowl he'd made that morning because he refused to show up empty-handed. You sure about this? He asked. No, I said. But we're doing it. He laughed. We pulled into the driveway. Same stone colonial, same Bermuda grass. My mother answered the door, hugged me longer than usual, then turned to Tomas. You must be Mr. Vidal, I'm Lorraine. Please, come in. Tomas, please, he said, and this is for you. He handed her the bowl. She held it up, ran her thumb along the rim. This is gorgeous, she said, and she meant it, and I could tell she meant it because her voice didn't have the cashmere in it, just honesty. We sat down to eat at 1. 5 of us. My parents, Miles, me, Tomas. Miles and I made eye contact when I walked in. He didn't smile, just nodded. I nodded back. Halfway through the meal, my father set down his fork. Sloane, Lynn mentioned you're working on a project for a hotel in Highlands. Tell me about it. I stared at him. He'd called Lynn. He'd asked. It's a 22-room boutique inn, I said. They want everything custom. Bed frames, desks, nightstands, all from reclaimed barnwood sourced within 50 miles of the property. That sounds like a massive undertaking, he said. In a good way. It is, I said. In a good way. My mother asked about the timeline, whether I had enough staff, how I chose which wood went where. Real questions. I answered without bracing for the subject change that always used to follow. It felt strange. Good, but strange. Miles was quiet most of dinner. When I stood to leave at 3, he followed me to the door. We stood on the porch, neither of us speaking for a moment. I'm sorry, he said. Not the voicemail version. The real one. I was threatened by you. I took the path everyone said was right, and it felt hollow, and instead of dealing with that, I made you smaller so I could feel bigger. I looked at him. My brother. The boy who used to build blanket forts with me in this same living room. I don't forgive you yet, I said. But I hear you. He nodded. That's more than I deserve. Tomas and I drove home. The mountains rose around us, blue and steady. That wasn't so bad, he said. No, I said, not perfect, but a start. March. I was standing in the workshop at 6 in the morning, reviewing the cut list for the Highlands Hotel project. Largest contract we'd ever signed, $94,000. Tomas was beside me, sharpening a hand plane, already in motion. We're going to need more quarter-sawn oak, he said. I'll call the mill, I said. A text from my mother. Not a Sunday. A Wednesday. Good morning, sweetheart. Dad and I were talking, and we'd love to come up and see the workshop sometime, if that's okay. I looked at the message, then at the shop around me. 11 people would be here by 7. Sawdust in the air, the planer humming, my name on the door, on the invoices, on the aprons, on the award sitting on the shelf above my desk, catching the morning light like a small glass flame. Yeah, I typed back. I'd like that. I put the phone down, picked up my chisel, and got back to work.